Okay, we're looking at part 2 now of Athena and the goddess and how we connect all these things. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, go to the very end of this video and click in your top left hand corner and it'll lead it back. This is only going to be a two-parter and this won't be a full one. Where we stopped last time, we were talking about how he's equating it to Cain, but he's also telling you that Nema, the Sumerian goddess of waters, and Athena inspired and directed the resurgence on the way of Cain in the post-flood through her son Cush, Hermes, and her grandson Nimrod, Hercules, and was exalted for that reason. A lot of us have realized that this whole telling here has to do with Sumerians and Akkadians and Nimrod and things that went along. And they had their own Hermes, who is the messenger and real fast, huh? But no, he's a god of wisdom. For in his same position in all the other places around this, he brings speech, he does things which in your Bible tells you were done by these bad angels that came down. They even name them somewhat, and that's conspicuous too, and I've done videos about that. After the Tower of Babel, in which a mankind had a similar type of language, and we find now that's Proto-Indo-European or Aryan languages. It all goes back to this form from Sanskrit all the way to Irish and so on. And then the dispersion of languages that developed and spread over time. After the Tower of Babel, though, mankind adored Nema by her titles including Lama, Astarte, Ishtar, Hathor, and Isis, Ma'at, Artemis, Diana, Inanna, Asherah, and ultimately are most gloriously idolized as the great Greek goddess Athena. But they don't mention Neith, and Neith and Athena are supposed to have been the same thing. But then, of course, there's multi-pantheons that come out of this, and persons that are in different positions, pulling off the same thing, and we call that aspects nowadays. And people know that the Greek gods and the Roman gods are the same thing, and you get that out of it. Confirmation from secular scholars is going to tell you here. The most revealing 782-page book by secular scholars Anne Baring and Jules Cashford, titled The Myth of the Goddess, supplies confirming evidence. The authors trace the goddess of the ancient Near Eastern and Mediterranean world back to a single figure, the Sumerian goddess Namu. A minor linguistic variation of Nama. Below we see an ancient Sumerian image of Namu. She wears a mountain hat representing the mountain from which she descended after the flood. In her hand she holds the double-headed serpent, symbolizing the serpent's rule in the pre-flood world and now in the post-flood world as well, as told in the Gilgamesh's tale. And if we look, on her arm is the Aegis. This is twined serpents up a pole that ends up ending in something that looks like an ankh, or what they show you later is a rope coiled, which is also found in the Egyptians. Around everybody who is deified, they have this coil around them. They are inside of the sacred circle. Ding! The two-headed snake, the double snake, two snakes coming together. Conan the Barbarian hits again. Who is Crom? Well, who is Kron? Kronos. And old ladies are crones. Snap. She's also, looks like she's standing on a snake. And that's from in your Bible too. Or it will bite at your heel and you will crush its head. Now that's an edict for them to stamp out this type of religion and put in theirs in place. That has to be bad religion because the flood and it went bad. God did something. It was against that. Got to go some other way, right? Not necessarily so. You have to do it better and more correct. right? Let's go. Many of the significant ancient goddesses were linked to the flood in some way, beginning with the only one they represented, Nema and Namu. Bering and Cashford say that the images of water and sea, the unfathomable abyss of the deep, returns us to Namu, the Sumerian goddess whose ideogram was the sea. Asherah, a Canaanite goddess, was called Lady of the Sea, which links her to the Sumerian Namu and the Egyptian Isis, born in all wetness. It also connects her to Poseidon and or Neptune, ding, the guy that's talking to you now. Well, I'm not him, but hey. And who his counterpart was in the sea and Yam and so on, and how that goes. And if you'll think through that there, many things are revealed all of a sudden. Those descriptions of the great Canaanite woman who became worshipped as a goddess evoke the memory of the flood and her passageway through it. And some of these people with this story came from here and they went over there. According to Bering and Cashford, in both the Babylonian and Sumerian stories, Inanna and Ishtar derived derivative goddesses of the woman Namu lament the destruction of their people in the flood. And I've actually done a video on the lament of Inanna and show you exactly when the flood of the Bible is. And I've shown you how this guy that is all that in the British Museum, Irving Finkel, describes it and how it comes out. And it was a round boat made of rope, and that rope was hundreds of miles long, and that they had gone through this trouble, and then they actually tried to rebuild this thing. They only rebuild a slightly scaled model of what it is, and it's still gigantic, and how it had happened in the past. Let me hook up the charger here. It might wiggle a little. There. So, the title of Bering and Cashford's book ought to be, he says, The Memory of the Adored Woman. But as an academic disciples of atheist mythology, Joseph Campbell, they failed to make the obvious Genesis connection, a connection absolutely critical to the understanding of human history. And then I would say that he needs to put a comma after that and say, and that's why women were taken out of religion quite a bit. But, you know, I'm not going to even go there. I'm just After the flood, Noah's authority held sway for a time. Then the adoration of the Canaanite woman sprang up suddenly through the ancient world, and several generations later, most of humanity was without God in the world, Ephesians 2:12. God had let all nations go in their own ways, Act 14:16. So he's trying to create this God of these one people, all of a sudden to everyone, and of course everybody does that nowadays and say, oh, well, nobody knew anything, it was just this one guy, right? But he's got a whole pantheon going on. Back to our thing about women, and we should be looking at a picture when we show this and everything, but listen, it works out this way just a little bit, and I don't want this to come across as sexist or anything in any way, shape, or form. It's just reality. Men do the things that men do. That's just, and it's gonna go, okay? No, women reflect that man. And in a modern day, there are not so many respectful women left so much. They're too busy twerking and doing things, which I doubt you're going to see anybody think that any of these goddesses twerked or would have done anything along that line. Women are supposed to be the respectful one shown here. She's supposed to restrain her man and do these things. Some women who are listening now know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. Others want to feign that they don't. Others don't. But women are supposed to give forth that example. And that example, you are supposed to be the man's muse. And then that It all works like yin and yang. Yeah, you keep the man straight, he makes it work. You keep it straight, man. Round and round it goes. Where it stops, no one knows. So he tells you in this last part here that humanity was without God in the world, but everybody had gods. He tries to also tell you that God had let all nations go in their ways, and they talked about the nations. And so if we look and we're really thinking straight about this moment, we're talking about the gods of the Sumerians and how they had let it go, but they're trying to turn and make a plural word, Elohim, into a singular person or one entity. Ye shall be as gods. Well, that's what happens if you ate off the magic tree. See, a woman grew from a rib and ate from a magic tree because a talking snake told her to. And if you can get past that, then I've got a whole bunch of shit to tell you. Ancient Greek religious start with Namu and Athena as the key inspirational figure, or muse, chronicles that foundational period of the present evil age. Galatians 1:4, boasting of humanity's independence from our Creator, welcoming the serpent's enlightenment, and exalting man as the measure of all things. And everybody tries to say, oh, look, it's happening now. No, they're trying to say before that these people were too high on themselves and not worshiping God, and that they should have been more like these people who wanted and coveted all that stuff, and even in your Bible did do that, and tried to turn themselves into those people and the merchants that wherever it was. Well, what? So how does that work out? Well, you should be more like us. Oh, you mean you should take over and have all that in a bag of chips, and we should end up being back to the goat? Hold on, no, it doesn't work that way. This all is a big O thing. You need to fit in correctly. And those people have had a hard time fitting in. I'm going to leave that alone. Here's a picture of her, too. Sitting here on a bench, just like a man and a woman talking. None of the sacred symbolism and all the stuff to go along with it. What's he going to tell you about this? Well, from about 430 BC, Namu, Athena, and Cain, Hephaestus, who's shown there, are depicted as chatting amicably in the east frieze of the Parthenon in Athens. Strangely, Hephaestus has said that he wasn't the good-looking guy that everybody else was. Strangely also, we find out that blacksmiths used to use a patch over one eye. The eye that they turn towards it whenever they're striking on things so it doesn't take their eye out. Strangely, we see that same situation taken into the pirates, and everybody had an eye poked out and a patch when they were a pirate, and a parrot on their shoulder, didn't they, and a hook for an arm. No, that happened to some people, but the guy in the crow's nest and people that were on call to watch would have a patch over their eye, and it was not looking at the flames around and everything else, but adjusted to the dark for having been in the dark the whole time. And they walk away from the fire and get in the dark again and look off in the distance of the sea under the moonlight and flip that patch up and take a real good look. And that eye right there can use that telescope and everything. Oh, they put the patch over the bad eye. I'll be damned. It doesn't work that way. Oh, study the pirates. But that also shows you when someone has one eye closed, how later it can be looked at as these great people that were blacksmiths and herald metallurgy and these things like that were shown as cyclops, for they only had one eye. Above the east frieze of the Parthenon from about 430 BC, sculptors depicted Athena and Hephaestus, Zeus and Hera's eldest son, the Greek counterpart of Cain, ding, chatting amicably with her usual contributes. For Athena, no helmet, no spear, no serpent-trimmed aegis, no head of the Gorgon Medusa on her chest. For Hephaestus, no tongs, no hammer, no axe. The sculptors depict them as who they knew them to be, their ancestors, Namu and Cain, whose anti-God, he says, mankind exalting religious outlook they were wholeheartedly embraced. Well, let's go back to that story. Now, you were supposed to have been as gods as if you ate of the thing, right? Well, they had the sacred apples of the Hesperides and all these things, but they were as gods. And to this day, a lot of these people are held as immortal in the things that they did. Caesar was a god. All of the Egyptians were deified as gods and everything. So I tell you, it's ancestor veneration all the way through, and in their own image, of course, they're your ancestors. Below on a vase of the same period, Heracles joins ancestors on Olympus as an immortal. Left to right, Cush, Hermes; Eve, Hera; Adam, Zeus; and Nema, Athena; Nimrod, Hercules; and Nike in the center proclaims the immortality of these ancestors as the greatest of victories in the past. Hercules doesn't look so damn big anymore here. Oh, he's got the leg of an ass, and he's going to go beat everybody with it, and jawbone and axe or whatever. And here he's got the Aegis again. She doesn't have the Aegis. She doesn't have the Aegis. She's got something draped over her arm, but that's a cloth. So he's making connections to Zeus as being Adam as opposed to being Yahweh. At the bottom of the vase here, we see the four-corner pattern of a checkerboard interspersed with swirls that lead to a swastika pattern, and quite often there's a swastika pattern in that same situation that's there, but those swirls of water that we're seeing go around there is the ocean that surrounds us all, and also those same swirls, not done square but rounded off, as in squaring the circle, are seen all over the ancient Celtic world. Could it be any more obvious that these sculpted and vase figures are deified humans? In the ancient garden, the serpent promised, "Ye shall be as gods." As the ancient Greek artists have communicated so plainly to us, our elite ancestors who embraced its words and enlightenment did indeed become as gods. So, hopefully now we've made a little bit of headway on this concept and what goes in and how the Bible came about to be. And you can tell that this guy is deifying the Bible and saying this is it. Well, I'm telling you that the Bible is a culmination of everything that has happened, and it's saying, yeah, there's these variations on a theme of it all, and it's going to be real hard to put it together, but I'll be damned if the Greeks didn't fight for it to happen. And slowly but surely, as the Romans took over and had that same ideal in, turned it into what we have today, and it comes directly from that. Yes, directly from that. So making connections about who people are in the Bible and who would that have been in ancient mythologies, and most people don't make this connection. And they still think somehow there were flying horses and horse people and all this type of thing. And when we find out the reality of who the people are that had horses and how this all came together, it becomes a different puzzle, almost like you've been trying to make this puzzle the whole time, and then it's on a glass table and you decide to do something stupid, and you got down on the floor below it and turned and faced back up towards the sky or the stars and realized that there's a whole different picture on this other side, which is the reality of what's going on the picture on the first side that we're all trying to figure out, almost like a cheat code. Are you following me? Hopefully you're following me, people, and understand what connections I'm trying to make. And of course, we're still into this ideal of the Bible as being this one great culmination type thing that happened and everybody else was wrong. Well, if you look at it, they're telling you that everybody else was right. and we live in that world. Oh, the devil took over. Oh, shut up. There was an adversary of goat farmers that didn't like the fact that everybody had some crap at one time. That whole story is really just a culmination of all putting it together, and it's taking the last in line and signifying it as being the struggle that all had gone through in the past. See if you agree with me on that one down in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy, and we'll go on to another revelation on how this all goes together and how the serpent was a wise creature. For even in the Bible it tells you, be wise as serpents. So it confuses itself. Well, if we dig through it correctly, there is no confusion. And we can see how this worked in humanity to a modern day. And we can still see things that are echoing the past in our lives today. Peace.